departure, orders endorsed and delivered. Your last day here, Janet. So many things to do, to remember. Remember, the President of the United States. Greetings. Know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, fidelity, and abilities of Janet Harrison Lee, I do appoint her an ensign in the Nurse Corps in the United States Navy, to rank from the first day of July.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God.
Remember, Janet, the words that made you a commissioned officer, a Navy nurse. And then your arrival at your first duty station, your first glimpse of nurses' quarters, not exactly the bare barracks you'd expected. Meeting the rest of your indoctrination class, and Miss DeWager, your indoctrination instructor.
You come from many places, from many schools and hospitals. Now you will all wear the same cap, the same uniform. But your past experience in civilian nursing will serve you well as a foundation for your work in the Navy. And you will continue to build on that foundation. It's my job to get you started. Please come to me at any time for help. Are there any questions?
There were questions, all right, many of them. And she had the answers. But it was all confused in your mind, a puzzle in which the pieces had yet to find their places. Your physical, a part of the picture, the first of the periodic exams everybody gets in the Navy. Yes, it's up to you to keep fit, and physical fitness can be fun, too. Of course, learning to swim may have been something of a struggle. In the Navy, it's plain good sense to know how. Mental fitness, too, and opportunities for professional growth, as Miss DeWager put it. And relaxation for those who weren't preoccupied with 1,000 other things. Like your first shopping trip, when you found that a Navy compound is a little city in itself, and you were becoming part of it. The tailor shop, that school of Navy fashion. You'd wondered how you'd look in blues. Some difference from the sacred 20 of 1908. But you were here to carry on what they started. Navy traditions, customs, and courtesies. A lot more to it than that hurried sewing job or those naive questions of insignia, ranks, and ratings. You hardly knew the difference between a chief petty officer and a seaman apprentice then. But you soon found your own place on that ladder of stripes. Only 4 grades between you and the director of the Nurse Corps. But what a long pull. And so, with much to do and see and many things to learn, those first days passed faster than you could count them.
Now, before you go into the ward, I'd like you to become familiar with your new hospital. Here's an organization chart showing the many departments that you will work with and the variety of facilities for patient care. You'll do well to take this down in your notebook. Now, there are quite a few features about a large hospital that you should become familiar with. Now, let's start.
DeWager really knew that hospital, every bit of it. And in time, you got to know it almost as well as she did. Probably few medical organizations outside the military bring together so much challenging clinical material. Service injuries, combat wounds, sick and injured from the entire Navy, and from the other military services as well. All the infections man is heir to, including a few exotic diseases from the many far-flung tropical and Arctic areas where the Navy operates. Insofar as possible, every facility, all needed equipment, every opportunity for complete patient care. The latest accepted methods of diagnosis and the finest laboratory facilities for putting them into full use. specialized research programs to develop new and better ways of detecting and treating the unusual diseases and conditions encountered in military service. Surgical operating suites among the best to be found. Navy blood banks, drawing from civilian and military donors. A tissue bank of preserved human bone and blood vessels. One man's contribution to the recovery of another. Dental clinics, corrective and preventive, to serve patients and staff. Naval medicine cares for all ages, whether young or old. Their ills may be either of the body or of the mind. Often, treatment is needed to restore or to reestablish bodily function. Many and varied patients, many and varied treatments. Each service and department carrying out its essential role. Central Supply Service, providing sterile equipment for ward use from a single large stock. Pharmacy, furnishing drugs for the entire hospital. Food Service Division with its assembly line handling of regular and special diets. And all of it, every department, focusing on the patient's welfare, devoted to his care and help. Remember, Janet? Not the chart, DeWager said, but the substance behind it, the services it represents. Well, not much time for that kind of nostalgia now. Better get to work. Sorting, packing, things to throw away, things to keep. Each one means something, takes you back. And this, not from the president, but from 4 people you worked with closely. Saunders, your senior corpsman, Phipps, Dabbitt, and Feats Burton. Remember your first day on your own ward? You had the feeling a ship's officer said to have when he takes over his first sea command. Surgical Ward 3A, your ward, at least for the 8 hours of the AM shift. 2 of the 4 assigned corpsmen were accounted for, but where were the other 2? Probably having coffee in the galley.
Chances are any new nurse might have a few ideas of her own. Could want to change things around. Try to teach us some new ways. Might even try to change my hypo technique.
How is your hypo technique? If I can help you improve it, I'll be only too glad to. We better get ready now for sick call.
And then you learned why they called him Feats Burton.
Good morning.
Then you met Dr. Strong, your ward medical officer, captain of your little ship.
If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. I've been here a whole week myself. Saunders is an old hand. He's been here about 6 months.
Well, at least there's one seasoned member on the team.
Yes, there is. Good morning. How are you this morning?
Yes, it was a team. The patient care team. Doctor, nurse, and corpsman. Each with a particular job. All 3 contributing to the patient's health and welfare. But you didn't stop to think about such things then. You just went ahead with the routine of sick call. Part of your job was to teach corpsmen. So your first problem was to become familiar with their qualifications and experience, so that you could give each the type and degree of instruction he most needed. Of course, all the corpsmen had had a course at Hospital Corps School, but ward duty gave them their first contact with practical nursing and actual patients. Phipps, youngest of the lot, fresh from Corps School, was inclined to be tardy. But this time, for once, he was right on schedule with the patient's preoperative hypo. Someday, somewhere else, when Phipps was completely on his own, or in combat maybe, or with a different kind of medication, the punctuality and attention to detail learned on your ward would pay dividends in lives saved. Dabbitt, young, earnest, inexperienced, but eager to learn. Burton, whose exuberance was always carrying him away, well-meaning, awkward, no talent for detail, yet. Burton was going to be a problem, but the time to correct Burton was not in front of the patient. Saunders, enough experience, enough background to make him a valuable assistant in managing the ward. It was part of his learning experience. His help enabled you to do more for patients and spend more time instructing the younger corpsmen. Saunders was even closer to the time when he would have greater responsibilities and less supervision. Already he could carry out advanced nursing procedures to the complete satisfaction of Dr. Strong, and Dr. Strong was not easily satisfied. Saunders was learning by doing, as do all corpsmen. What was Burton doing? Better have a look. Of course, Hansen, the herniorrhaphy, was quite a character. And Burton had a habit of putting speed ahead of efficiency. Although Davitt was already quite skilled with his spiral reverse, he was still laboring under the delusion that the more he put on, the better the job. But he was learning by doing, and you were teaching by doing. Meanwhile, something else had gone wrong. The intravenous needle that Saunders had inserted had slipped from the vein. Caught in time, nothing serious. But Saunders had recognized a good opportunity for instructing the other corpsmen, and an accident became a teaching asset. As Miss DeWager said, whenever there's a treatment or a technique from which all corpsmen can benefit, bring them together and teach, conference style. But there were other things besides teaching in your relationship with the corpsmen. Sometimes you had decisions to make that would affect their personal affairs, as in the little matter of special liberty.
Why,